Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome. My name is Jason Starr. I'm your host for the next 20 minutes or so while we talk about from zero to search ready, how to build your executive search database without the database and the data entry. During our time together today, I'm going to do a couple of polls. And the first one is a very simple question, two options to choose from. I'm going to show it on the screen now. We're going to talk a bit about a process and a pathway, and I can adopt my presentation based on who we have in the room. So if we have a lot of people that are currently not using a system at all, I will potentially spin this one way, and if we have an audience of people that primarily have systems for exec search, I'll do it another way. I'll give you a couple more seconds to vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, and I will share the results. Okay, so the vast majority of people in the room are currently using a software of some sort. So that's helpful. Thank you. We'll do a couple more polls later, but for now, let's crack on. So, those of you that have used a border system before, those of you that are going through a process now, may recognize what I'm talking about here, about dreams versus reality, because there are an awful lot of things that you might expect to get when you buy an exec search system. And then when you actually start using it, it's not always quite the same. And to be clear, I'm not having a go at any salespeople, I'm not having a go at any products, it's just the reality of the process. Let me share with you some research that we did internally some time ago. It was research into buyers who were looking to procure software for an executive search business or an executive search team in an organization. So this is a combination of people that didn't have systems and people that were looking to upgrade systems. So you can see on the screen now the results of the survey. On the left-hand side, you can see the things that people wanted out of a new system. And on the right-hand side, you can see the reasons, things that people did not particularly want or did not particularly care about. Now, I think obviously different organizations have different requirements from systems, and that's very obvious to all of us. I think better teamwork with my colleagues, you might assume, was put in by someone that perhaps doesn't like his or her colleagues, but I suspect that was a sole trader, meaning they don't particularly care about it. But generally speaking, you can see this, nobody wants to do data entry. Everybody wants to invest in executive search software because of their ability to share information, their ability to retrieve information, their ability to analyze and do stuff with information, whether it's see a list of candidates or see who we spoke to last week or see your KPIs or feed it into an AI to get better results out of it, or see what your colleague's doing. It's all about retrieving, managing, assessing, understanding relationships, and information and data is allowing you to do that. And that's the dream. Obviously, in reality, though, it's not always like that, because when you buy an executive search system, you're not actually going to get what you see in the presentation, because in the presentation, and I don't mean this, again, I don't mean this to be critical of anyone, you are dealing with a professional salesperson whose job is to make the platform look good. And generally speaking, when you're buying a system for the first time, you're going to be looking at a database which is fully populated, which has lots of information with photos and up-to-date information and fully populated records and assignments that make sense and KPIs that make sense. And you know, when you ask to see something, you see it instantly, and it's amazing. Because the database, the CRM that you're looking at, has been built by the salesperson to impress. And that's reality. You know, whatever it is we're selling, whatever it is we're marketing, we try to make it look as good as possible. And no salesperson is going to spend a 30-minute demo showing how to do data entry. So that's the dream, that you buy this wonderful system that gives you access to all of this information quickly and easily. The reality, though, when you actually implement a system, certainly for the first time, is you log in and it's an empty bucket. So you can't see your KPIs, you can't see your contacts, you can't see your clients, you can't see your assignments, you can't see anything because there's nothing in it. And so on day one, all you do is data entry. And then on day two, all you do is data entry. And this is why user adoption is never any good, because no one wants to do data entry. Nobody wants to actually create records. Everybody wants to get to the point of getting the data out. Nobody wants to go through the process of putting the data in. And that's what you have to do traditionally when you buy a new software. And we call this issue time to value. So, and this is very unscientific. Obviously, whenever you do a chart, it looks scientific, but this is not particularly scientific. It will vary based on the company, the sector, software, and everything else. But generally speaking, over time, you're going to get very little value out of your new platform on day one. But as you add information to it, as it gets richer, as it gets more valuable, it will get more and more useful to you. And you can see that with the orange curve here. So what it is we're trying to present to you today, and the process I'm going to walk through, is how you can significantly reduce that time to value. So essentially what we're saying is I'm going to talk you through a process whereby you can go into a system and immediately have it offer value to you. And I'm going to talk about this partly from the perspective of someone that has an entirely new system, so someone who's starting from scratch. And that's where I'm going to start. But we're also going to touch on the process for someone who is potentially switching from another system, because obviously the curve is different in that case, but it's still the same story. When you move data from one platform to another, you're never productive on day one because of the learning and the fact the data's all moved around and not where you expect it, and so on and so forth. So we will touch on that as well. We're going to touch on both sides. So how do we do it? I'm going to do 2 polls, and I'm going to share the results with both. So momentarily, you'll see the first one. In this case, you're not going to know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask you to have a guess. How big is your LinkedIn network, your personal LinkedIn network? So, I think mine, I looked earlier, I've got somewhere between 10 and 15,000 people. I was an early adopter on LinkedIn, and I went through a phase of connecting with everybody. So that doesn't make me typical, but generally speaking, I think I'm 10 to 15. But I'd be interested to see roughly how many people are in your network. So I'm going to give you a few more seconds. 3, obviously this is confidential, it doesn't get shared with anyone. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, now before I share the results of that, I'm going to share a second poll. I can tell you that broadly speaking, most of you seem to have around 10,000 people, but that's a bit simplistic. But I'm going to share a second poll with you now. So looking at that group of people, that 5,000 or that 1,000 or that 10,000 or that 20,000 or whatever it might be, how many of those people would you say are relevant to your search practice? So they could be candidates, former candidates, potential candidates, client contacts, potential client contacts, people you've dealt with historically, people you've dealt with in the past, people that you'd like to deal with going forward. So I'll give you a few more seconds, and I can tell you the results. It's a bit odd, actually. We've got about half of you are saying, it's about half and half. So about half of you are saying less than 50%, so between 25 and 50%, or less than 25%, and then the remainder saying 50 to 70%. So what I want you to do now is take the 2 numbers we've looked at and times them together. So if you've got 10,000 people in your database, you reckon, and you've got 50% of them who are relevant, that's basically 5,000 people in your LinkedIn connections who are valuable to you. Now think about the size of your firm and times it by the number of colleagues you have. So if you've got 2 colleagues, you double it. If you've got 3 colleagues, you treble it. And then reduce a bit because of the duplication. There's going to be people that you know, but your colleagues also know as well. And if you go through that process, broadly speaking, you're going to get come up with a number that is the valuable connections across you and your team in LinkedIn. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we can use data enrichment to make that into a database for you. Let me just get rid of that. Okay. So those of you that have never exported your LinkedIn connections before, it's very easy to do. LinkedIn tries to make it difficult. It hides the link and so on. But when you find the link, it's very easy to do. You click on the link, and for some reason, I don't know why, LinkedIn takes several hours, sometimes a day, but it will eventually give you your data. And your data, your connections on LinkedIn look something like this. So this is an Excel spreadsheet you can see that I downloaded a few days ago or a couple of months ago. And you can see very limited information. This is it. I've not edited anything out of it. This is it. So on my connections list, all of these people are connected to me. I got the first name, the last name, the LinkedIn URL. I got a company, I got a job title, and I got a connection date. Now you'll notice there's a column that says email address, but LinkedIn very rarely provides that. I don't know why, but they don't. So this is literally all you will get when you do your LinkedIn connections export. So if we're thinking, let's build a database using our LinkedIn connections export, there's really no point because that is literally all you'll get. That building a database with just name, company, job title is with no phone numbers, no email, nothing else. It's a phone book. It's not even a phone book. It's not contact data. It's useless. So for us to make something of value from this, we need to build on it. And we can do that using a technology called data enrichment. So those of you that are not aware of it, data enrichment is not a technology we've invented. There are lots of providers that do this. The difference is for us, we pay them a lot of money, so we have access to their technology in our systems. But anyone can do this. Basically, what data enrichment does is it takes a small amount of information about, in this case, a person, and then builds on top of it based on other publicly available data sources. So let me give you an example of that. One of my connections, number 7,342 apparently, Debbie, who I seemingly connected with in May 2013, which was quite depressing really, is you can see the information that I got from LinkedIn from her. So I've got her name, her surname, her URL, company name, job title, and the date. That's very, very limited. But we can use that. We can use that LinkedIn URL in particular to go to a data provider and say, give me all the publicly available professional information you can give me on that person. And they'll look in their big databases, much of which, but not all of which, comes from LinkedIn. And they'll use that to create a populated record. And what does that give you? Well, let me show you. This is an example of part of a record created using this technique, this data enrichment technique. So all we had to start with, remember, was a name, a URL, a company, and a job title. That was it. And the outcome is something like this. You can see, using that information, we've got a photo, we've got a location, we've got not just current jobs, but multiple jobs going back years. You can't see it on this screen, but we've got other information as well. So we've got education data. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes you'll get a Twitter URL or a Crunchbase URL or something else. But basically, we've gone from having a very simple spreadsheet with virtually no data on a person to what is essentially a populated record. And it's worth emphasizing, and we'll come on to this, actually, let's come on to this now. This is the outcome of a LinkedIn Connections export. But actually, the same concept will work with any data source. So if you're using a legacy database and you've got data in it from the last 10 years you've been using it, and some of it is really up to date and some of it is really not up to date, you can still do the same thing. You can export the data, you can put it through this process, and richer data will come out the other side. And if you have got legacy data in your system, you've got a resume or some notes or the fact that someone was shortlisted on an assignment, that will all come over as well. So you will add that, you'll get your enriched data from the public world added to your own internal private IP about that person. So it doesn't matter whether you've got a database or not, the same thing applies. But there's more to it than this. We're not just building a list of people. In the executive search world, we don't just care about people, we care about the companies they work for as well. And as you can see from Debbie's profile here, there are multiple companies that she's worked for. And we can use that. So if you put, in my connections, I have lots of people that work for this particular company. And if I put all of those people through this process, not only will the system create records for them with their photos and their employment history and everything else you've seen, it will also create company records. And those company records will show sometimes, and it will vary, but maybe an address, maybe a location, maybe other social media URLs, maybe a phone number, maybe details of what the company does, maybe a company logo. So basically, all of the information in the screen you can see here, with the exception of the assignment numbers on the right-hand side, which is from my demo system, and the company team, which I've added manually myself. But all of the other data here added automatically through this enrichment process. But again, it's not just current jobs. The system, this technology will go through every job a person has had and try to do the same thing for everywhere they've worked. So if you've got someone who is today working for McKinsey and previously worked for KPMG, the system will create a record in your database for McKinsey and KPMG. And you'll see person X who currently works for McKinsey. And when you go into KPMG and you click on former employees, you'll see them listed there as well, along with everyone else that worked there. So you've gone from having this simple spreadsheet to a very structured database, and you've got that when you log in. So on your first day, instead of logging into an empty database, or if you're coming from another system, a database that's got exactly the same data you had before, much of it very, very old, you've got an up-to-date database full of information which is literally the same as you'd see on a LinkedIn profile or a Zing profile or whatever it might be. In many, many cases, it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. So what you've done, if you go back to our time to value chart, we have dramatically accelerated time to value because there's virtually no data entry there. Everything comes in. But of course, once you turn the system on, you've got what might be considered, well, exaggerating, but a mini LinkedIn as your CRM. You can then do what you like with it, like as you would with any other CRM. You know, you can go and add profiles to people that aren't on LinkedIn, or from resumes, or other people that aren't your LinkedIn connections, of course. This isn't just about your connections. It's about having a starting point. You can add all of this information in exactly as you would with any other CRM. And of course, then you've got the ability to do stuff with that CRM. You know, we go back to our first slide. Why are people going through this process? Because they don't want to put information in, they want to get information out. So you can then start to look at dashboards. You can start to use Chrome extension. You can start to search. You can start to, you know, use an Outlook add-in or whatever it might be. So a fully functional CRM, just like you may have, you know, looked at elsewhere, but populated with the people you know, the people you care about on day one. And that's essentially the process you can go through. Now, as I say, what we've talked about here, data enrichment, is not something that we invented. Lots of companies do this. As far as I know, I might be wrong, we are the only ones that do it as part of our standard onboarding process for every single one of our executive search firm clients. I think other firms don't do it at all, or if they do, they'll charge you for it. It's standard for us because our technology is built around this concept. So if this is something you'd like to learn about, we would love to talk to you about it. So what I'd love to do, when you leave this session in a few moments, you're going to get a little pop-up message that says, if you'd like a demo, leave your details. Tick the box, leave your details, or alternatively, just scan this image that's on the screen now. And either myself or my colleagues would be very, very happy to talk to you about this particular process and how it could work with your firm, your data, your needs. That's it from me. I said I would do it in 20 minutes, and according to my watch, we finished in 19 and a half. So feel free to you know, go and get a glass of water or something. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I do appreciate it, and I hope that we'll speak again more personally than this at some point soon. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.